Okay, this is a pretty quick overview of the ACSM's not just fitness and facility standards and guidelines, but really where do they come from and how does the ACSM even develop these? So first of all, a few things, quick reminder or new information. If you didn't know it, the ACSM, the American College of Sports Medicine, was founded in the mid 20th century, right when we saw a lot of development of some of the um, side professions of kinesiology. And so before that, and we kind of just had physical education, we had teaching and coaching, and really the mid-century was when we start to see some identification, separation a bit, and classification of some of our additional disciplines. So motor behavior, motor development, exercise physiology, for example, athletic training. So I put the Instagram handle here because I absolutely recommend following the ACSM on Instagram and on Facebook. They are different in their social media, so is Twitter. So you can see the mission here. They have a major focus on using scientific research to inform our practical applications. And it focuses on exercise science and sport medicine, definitely more on the science side. If we think of the art versus the science of coaching, or art and science of coaching, this is definitely more on the science side. So making sure we have informed practices through research. And a little bit about ACSM. This is an interdisciplinary organization, so it's not just exercise scientists. For example, it consists of physicians, primary care providers that relate to and work in sports medicine, athletic trainers, personal trainers, some practitioners, physical therapists, occupational therapists that work in the more sport, return to play type of field, researchers, physiologists, etc. And it's an internationally recognized organization, so across the world, and major point of research, guidelines, and policies. We also know that they certify individuals. That's how most of us know the ACSM. So now we're going to look at how the ACSM shares their information, what's considered experts and science-based opinion. So they have three ways of doing it: official positions, endorsed statements, and current issues and policy briefs. So the third one, issues and policy briefs, this essentially is looking at anything that maybe is proposed or current legislation that relates to health of athletes, of individuals. Endorsed statements are positions from other organizations that they also agree and will publicly state they agree with and support. Official positions is what we're going to look at. And there's a multi-stage, pretty in-depth process of actually getting an official college, ACSM college position stand. And so our health and fitness facility guidelines are absolutely in this process. And so it's a formation of essential PCOT questions. It's a process of looking at research questions, review of literature, a bias check of the studies that are involved in the literature, a grading or assessment of the strength of the evidence in those studies. And they set a goal of an 18-month timeline from the concept of a position stand to its actual publication, which in the terms of research is a pretty fast timeline, but we know in the real world and how fast information spreads, how fast and accurate information can spread, it's kind of a long time. So they have a few types of official position stands or official position statements. The major one is called position stands. So a few things that it follows. It must be evidence-based. That means it's been published in a peer-reviewed research journal. There has to be specific methodology those papers follow. It has to be a major social issue, of course. And has to be worthy enough. They say expert consideration just means that other college members are willing to consider it. So here's a few examples of ones that currently exist. There's many more, but I pulled a few. And just notice the last one on exercise and type 2 diabetes. This is a joint statement. So it was authored jointly between the ACSM and American Diabetes Association. Next type we see is umbrella reviews. Literally the same thing as a position stand, but this is used to update position stands where either new information has come out, they're just updating it to make it more relevant, and so really it's additional layers of review of the existing reviews and meta-analyses that are there, and so they go across an entire area of related information in addition to just the primary literature that was in the initial position stand. The third type our expert consensus statement. So that means it uses a blend of not just the peer-reviewed research, but it also is looking at expert opinion. Still must be consensus, so it's not just one expert. So they will look at primary research findings, and this is a way that they can share information in a much quicker method. So if it's really high social importance or time relevant, they'll go with a consensus statement perhaps first before a full position statement. And then contemporary issues, same thing, must be peer-reviewed, must follow methodology, but these are more for topics that are considered emerging, and again, time is of the essence. These are meant to be very quick in their turnaround. It's socially driven now if they're relevant, and so here's a recent one I pulled off their website. The purpose of it on energy drinks, which we know is definitely a current issue. And these types of positions will give additional information that relates to more practical applications. So how can lay people or fitness professionals educate, how we can adjust our marketing, what we should advocate for, and what actual research needs to be done. And then lastly, we have call to action. So essentially, it's a statement that's saying we need to take a look at this. And so it could be an area of research or a scientific challenge or issue or a topic. And so basically, the ACSM makes a very clear statement, and then they direct what action should happen. And so there's an example here related to universal design in sports facilities and exercise facilities. That relates to the accessibility for individuals with disabilities beyond just having wider lanes in fitness centers or having accessible entrances. This relates to opportunities, to labeling, signage, that kind of thing. And so now we focus on our standards and guidelines for health and fitness facilities. So it's not necessarily a position stand, but this is a much more in-depth element. It's full-blown standards and guidelines. Did go through the same process, absolutely informed by research and expert consensus. So we know that the first set of these was published in 1982, and it had a similar beginning in the early 80s. This started as a call to action document of an area that needed more attention. And each edition, this is currently the 5th one that just came out, it's changes essentially based off of what comes up in research and any new factors that are relevant in the market, what's driving these changes as well. Who writes these, or who has updated, for example, this last edition? It's a mix. So again, it's a collaborative interdisciplinary group. We have health and wellness experts, members of the ACSM, researchers, people who have expertise in law. So actually having lawyers look and assist with the writing of it. Individuals that work in safety regulations when it comes to buildings and looking at safety statutes. And then also just individuals who work and operate in these facilities. So standards, here's what we need to know. They're not intended to necessarily hold up a legal duty or standard of care to hold up in litigation. It can be something that can be referenced, but it's not necessarily something that may hold up in an official law. These are also not intended to be above or supersede any actual laws or regulations in any type of area. So whether it's your county, your city, your region, your state, your province, whatever it may be. They tend to be qualitative in nature, not related to numbers, but more a quality of standard that should be done. And then they should be general. They are written to be general enough to accommodate different types of fitness and health facilities and circumstances. And so what they are base criteria for performance and operation of these facilities, and we should consider them as bare minimum requirements. And so really it means ACSM believes that a facility must meet all of these standards in order to provide a safe environment where we can conduct physical activity and exercise programs. Guidelines are the other part. They're a little bit different than the standards. And so they believe that the health and fitness operators should consider applying these guidelines to help improve general quality and the user experience. So they're not standards because these are above those minimum guidelines, or above the minimum standards that we have, so above minimum. And not all of these guidelines will apply to all or even most facility situations. So if we think of, for example, a 24-hour non-staffed fitness facility, a lot of the guidelines may not apply to that because there aren't actual physical people there. So that's our brief overview Couple more tips. If you are a facility operator, how these are meant to be used. Quick reminder from the ACSM, it's their professional and expert opinion. However, responsibility for safety and quality of service is always back on the operator and service provider. So that's the practitioners. And even though it's important to apply these and to consider them, we also need to apply our personal experience and what we know is best practice according to our space. And just because we would follow the standards or the guidelines or both, it doesn't mean that it's taking away risk in a facility. And we need to know the standard is always evolving. And so even though these standards come out every several years, it's the responsibility of the operator and the practitioner to stay up to date of what's current and what's relevant from the ACSM and from the general fitness community of what else can enhance safety and the user experience. That is it.